Hey there YouTube, welcome back to Draco Ray Gaming. Today we're going to be talking about the new Warzone and the best settings for it. RYZEN is here and you need that competitive edge. So as usual, no BS, no fluff. Here we go. Alright, I'm not even going to touch the controller settings. We're going to jump right into the mouse and keyboard settings because that's what I play on. So I'm not going to pretend like I know the controller settings. The first thing we talk about is sensitivity, and I've got a formula for you that may work. So I run 400 DPI on my mouse and I run an 8 sensitivity. So the way it kind of works is, like, if you're running a 1600 DPI, say, then you want to be running a 2 to 2.5 sensitivity in-game for your 600 DPI. The more DPI, the higher sensitivity on your mouse. But the in-game sensitivity needs to match that DPI and become friendly, because you kind of want to make one flick like a full 360 and be able to turn around quickly without having to pick up and scoot your mouse and things like that. So I run a 400 DPI at 8 sensitivity. So if you're starting at 1600 DPI, you want to take away 2 sensitivity for every 400 DPI that you lower it. I'll let you figure that out and think about that formula a little bit. But the 2 examples I have is 8 sensitivity at 400 DPI and then 2 to 2.5 sensitivity at 1600 DPI. So that's about it in here. I'm going to do another video on all these coefficients for the monitor and ADS individual sensitivities, because there's a lot of calibration here that you could probably do that will really hurt or could possibly help. So that's about it as far as mouse. We're just going to respect our DPI and sensitivity settings. Now going into keybinds, so there's only a few things here we really need to look at. I really like binding my lethal equipment to my middle mouse. I mean, we'll go one by one, but like move forward, backwards, left, right. I keep WASD because I like kind of the old school FPS format, the first person shooter format, because I've been playing so long on mouse and keyboard. So I do like where, C is crouch, control is prone or dive, shift is sprint and run. I keep all that the same. A lot of these are preference, so F is interact. That's all standard. So the things that are really going to help you here, so I don't waste your time, is doing like weapon inspect, your fire mode, your melees, and your lethal equipment. These are critical things you need in the heat of battle. And if you're searching for that key, or you're hitting the wrong button, or you're switching your weapon on accident, you need to change that. So I do like lethal equipment on the middle mouse button, so I can hold it down while I aim. I do like melee on E or V, and my fire mode at B, and then weapon inspect, like I is for inspect, right? I remember that, the letter I, or C for crouch, etc. So that's how I like to have a lot of these settings. One of the other ones is your weapon swap, or your next weapon, last weapon. So I like to keep those on 1 and 2. So if you go to next weapon, it's 2, and if you go to previous weapon, it's 1. So there's some other settings there you can jump into here. There's some additional combat advanced keybinds here, so pay attention to that. As far as the vehicle ones, there's really not much that I changed here at all, and a lot of it is preference. These are important though. With your push to talk buttons, make sure you know where they're at. Z works for me. You may want to switch that to V for voice, or etc., so you remember. So let's jump into the gameplay ones now, get into some more interesting things. So I've starred what I want to talk about. Everything else is pretty much default, but you want to change your crouch behavior to toggle. That could be preference as well, but it works well for me. Now, automatic sprint. A lot of people put this on, but I find it very untactical. They think it's tactical, but you're running around making noise constantly, and say you need to be quiet, but you're auto sprinting all the time. These are just for like pure full-blown sweats that don't care, or they're running stealth sneaker shoes that silence their footsteps. But so this again is preference, but I prefer not to run it. So I want to give you that little piece of information that may help you be a little bit more tactical. The prone behavior we want to set to go to, so you slam right down. That's what I prefer to. It's much more tactical to go right down. It's much more tactical to have the option of being loud or being quiet. There is some other ones I've starred here. Everything else is default. You can take a peek here. But the things that I changed, I found make the most difference. Like, for instance, depleted ammo weapon switch. I turn that off because when it auto switches my weapon, and then I'm trying to switch with 1 or 2 with my other keys, it can cause some confusion. And that 1 second weapon swap is what's going to end up getting you the win or the loss. So I recommend, as a tactical maneuver, turning this off. The armor plate behavior, super important. Make sure you have it apply all. You can always cancel if needed, I believe, but having apply all to get all the plates on is my preference as well. Vehicle camera recenter, I just turn that off. I recenter it myself, or I have it as like a short delay or off, but I just ended up turning it off, and it's much easier for me to control with the mouse or the joystick, right? So this is another one, the ping wheel delay. It can help if you're trying to make callouts quick. I do a lot of callouts and a lot of pinging, so I did have the ping wheel delay as short, so it comes up pretty quick, and I can make the communications I need as fast as possible, especially if we're not on comms for some reason, on mic. So super, super helpful for me. All right, let's jump into audio settings. For audio settings, the only setting you can really set in here to really help you, please don't set it to headphones. It works horrible. Set it to home theater. It'll really help you out. And other than that, your typical voice chat options are in here, open mic versus push to talk, and etc. But this is the big one. Put it on home theater. It'll help a lot. At the bottom, these are some quality of life settings I really recommend you put on. Reduce tinnitus sound will help with the flashbangs. War tracks as a passenger. If you're streaming, you don't want that on. It's going to get you copyrighted. The Juggernaut music is preference. I do like the Modern Warfare Classic hit markers. I do mute the game when minimized when I'm doing some other things. We don't do mono audio, none of this stuff right here. Some of the other things I turn off that like drive me nuts is the cinematic volume. I turn that off. And then the gameplay music volume, I turn that off too. I don't like hearing the same stuff constantly or having that mixed into what I'm editing and things like that. So depending on your preference, or if you're a streamer or you make content on YouTube, you may want to turn these off. All right, now let's get into some of the interface settings. And then last but not least, the best for last, graphic settings. But let's do interface settings. It's just a bunch of subtitle stuff, blah, 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 whatever. But the color customization is really where it's at. So put a color for you that you're really that's gonna stick out, and put colors that are gonna stick out for you, that make sense to you, that make you react. Colors are huge. We have a big sensory and visual thing that happens in our brains with colors. So pick the color palettes that are gonna work for you. I wouldn't recommend using any of the other type of color correction filters for colorblind things like that. I'd stay away from that, but there is a color filter here, and the color filter 2 really makes the colors pop, and they're less transparent, and I like that, so I recommend the filter 2 if you're going to be running that. And then I have a 75 and 100 here. So pick the colors you like, run filter 2, set these to 75 and 100. You'll have a lot better time utilizing those colors and advantages for tactical purposes in game. Let's see here. So mini shape, I run square. I definitely run the horizontal compass. That can really help with calling. If you can get a team to use like 345 south, west, north, ping on map, visual, like you really get the comms down, this can be of big use too. The crosshairs, this is a huge one. Keep it on static, otherwise they bounce around everywhere. And keep your center dot on. These are huge. The center dot scale can be changed in size, so use this for your preference. I'm fine with a small one. It helps me keep on target. Other than that, you can really clean up some other things with the hit marker visuals, as well as full player names versus smaller player names. There's some good preferences in here. And I do use a lot of the telemetry for the in-game network icons and etc. I skip introduction movie on, the tooltips off. All of this is quality of life stuff, but definitely stuff that is the best settings that make your game a lot better. All right, now let's jump into graphic settings. All right, for graphic settings on display. If you don't know what all this is, you probably should definitely do a little bit more research, but definitely want to run full screen exclusive for the most frames. Make sure everything's set up to the right monitor graphics card. Your right refresh rate for your monitor needs to match all the way in Nvidia control panel settings, Windows settings, as well as in-game. You can run 1440p or 1080p depending on your system specs. I bounce kind of back and forth, but I have been running. I found the right settings to make it really crisp in 1080, and I think you're going to love these settings. Regular gamma, Nvidia reflex low latencies on. This is also preference, but I've been doing really good with on. You can run on or on with boost. The eco mode, I just sent it to the custom and kind of turned it down. I didn't like it. They had an off setting in Modern Warfare 3, I believe, and then here it just kind of has custom or efficiency or lower consumption. So I'm running custom, and I just have VSync off, all the menus off. My custom frame rate limit, my monitor max is 240, so I'm running a 250 with a 10 little cap. I don't want to generate extra frames. I don't need to. And these are all kind of just default for the menus. HDR off. As far as quality, this is the big stuff here. This is the stuff that really matters for FPS boost and stability and visuals. So this is what I found to be the best settings in Warzone. So I'm running Nvidia DLAA. I'm not running any ray tracing. I'm running a VRAM scale target of 80. This used to be a problem in the old one where we bumped it down to 50-ish or so, but 80 seems to be working fine so far. And I got great frames still, and I'm in visibility with running high on texture filter resolution, texture filter anti-scropic on high. Now, I don't want to I just tell you to turn everything down and put everything on low, because anybody can do that. But this is what I found was the best for my system. And my system's not super, super high end. Depth of the field off. I have detail quality level on high. I have particle resolution on very low, because it's just particles that I don't really want to see. And like the game is so overwhelming. There's all this smoke and bullet sprays and you know, just like particle effects and dust and all that kind of stuff. You can calm it down and bring out the buildings and bring out the shadows and the people and your you know, your visibility, your field of view. This way, all of that, it really, really helps a lot. So that's what these settings are focused on. Bullet impacts off. Persistent, and if you want to check your spray pattern, have them on. Otherwise, I turn them off. I try to keep the game nice, crisp, and clear. I want to see my enemy. I don't want to see my bullet like holes in the wall. I'm not even paying attention to those in a gunfight. Shader quality is on high. On-demand texture streaming is off. Local streaming, all that's off. Shadow quality is on high. The shadows are important, especially at long distance for sniping. Otherwise, it gets really pixely, or you can have it nice and clear. But the screen space shadows and the ambient occlusion on the guns and the screen space reflections and the reflections off the water and the mirrors, forget all that. I'm not playing some AAA title Game of the Year edition and trying to soak it all in 4K at 60 frames. We're playing a competition shooter, and so I'm basing those settings around that. So the environment. So tessellation's on all right now. I might change that, but volumetric quality is low, off on deferred physics, weather, good volumes, water quality, all that kind of stuff, like motion blur, all that stuff off. Film grain, we're gonna turn all that kind of stuff off. So as far as view, I run a 120 field of view, competitions between 100 and 120. I recommend that. Affected is huge, so that's how much it zooms in when you aim down sight. It also affects visual recoil, so I really recommend running affected. Weapon field of view is default, third person view is 90, vehicle field of view wide. So here it is, weapon motion blur. You know, world motion blur, film grain, camera, all this stuff off. All this stuff least 50, and off or default here. Inverted flashbang off, and these are really critical too for quality of life in the game. I know this video is going to help you out get more frames per second and have the best quality of life, visibility, and a competitive edge in Warzone. I'm Draco Ray here to help the gaming community, and I'll see you next time.